Welcome to Emovura Audiobooks channel. This is playlist of Emovura Crime Files, Rewind, where every story starts at the end. The story is called Second Shift. Get comfortable. Here's where it ends. The end. Hal Briggs praised the coffee before he collapsed. That was the single detail Denise Okafor couldn't stop repeating. First to the paramedics kneeling over him on the break room floor, then to the two detectives who arrived 20 minutes later with notepads already out. Then, eventually, to a defense lawyer she couldn't remotely afford on a factory floor salary that hadn't gone up in 3 years. She'd brought Hal the thermos herself that morning, a small, deliberate truce. After weeks of raw tension over the union dispute that had split the entire second shift clean down the middle, friends on one side of the cafeteria, friends on the other, nobody quite meeting anybody's eyes at lunch anymore. Tastes different, Hal had said, smiling at her over the rim of the mug. Sweeter than usual. You do something different? Denise had laughed and told him it was the same brand as always, and he'd shrugged and taken another long sip. And 40 seconds later, his hand had gone to his throat, and then to the edge of the table. And then he was on the floor with his mug still rolling in a slow, unhurried half circle away from his open hand, coffee pooling dark against the grout lines. Her fingerprints, smudged, ordinary, entirely explainable, if anyone had bothered to ask her calmly, were somehow the only ones anyone in that building seemed remotely interested in that morning. Hours earlier, that morning, plant manager Selena Cross had come in unusually early, earlier than anyone on staff could remember seeing her arrive in recent memory, earlier even than the security guard who unlocked the front gate and restocked the break room sugar dispenser herself, a task she hadn't personally touched in 6 years, always leaving it instead to whichever junior staffer had the morning shift and a spare 5 minutes before the floor got loud. She'd worn gloves for it, the kind she kept in her desk for handling paperwork on rainy days, and told the one early arriving cleaner who saw her that the dispenser had jammed and she was clearing it herself to save everyone the wait. It was a small lie, easily told, easily believed, the kind she'd gotten good at telling over 15 years of running that floor. She knew, because everyone on that floor knew, that Hal took his coffee sweet, the way he had every single day for 11 years. 2 sugars, never 3, a running joke among the old-timers. She knew, too, that Denise, still trying so visibly to smooth things over after the last heated shop floor argument about overtime pay, would be exactly the one to carry it across the room to him that morning, cup balanced carefully so it wouldn't spill on the walkover. Days earlier, 2 days earlier, Hal had told Selena, in the level, unhurried voice of a man who had already made peace with whatever came next in his life, that he intended to testify to OSHA about the safety violations she'd spent years quietly papering over in triplicate, the same violations that had already cost one worker his hand 18 months ago, a settlement the company paid quietly and never discussed in any meeting again. He gave her 1 week to come forward on her own first, out of what he still, perhaps foolishly, considered basic professional respect between two people who'd worked together a long time. She gave herself 2 days to make absolutely certain he never got the chance to. She hadn't slept properly since that conversation. She'd sat in her car in the parking lot both nights after everyone else left, running the numbers on what a federal investigation would actually cost her. Not just the fines, which the company could absorb, but her own signature on 3 years of falsified reports, a detail no lawyer would be able to explain away as an oversight. Weeks earlier, the falsified safety logs stretched back further than either of them liked to privately admit. 3 full years of altered inspection dates, buried incident reports, initials forged so carefully they had already fooled 2 separate outside audits, without a single flag raised by anyone reviewing the paperwork. Hal had only started asking real, pointed questions after a routine quarterly review turned up a maintenance discrepancy he simply couldn't explain away with the usual practice shrug he'd used for years to avoid trouble on the floor. He'd brought the discrepancy to Selena first, quietly, out of loyalty, giving her the chance to fix it herself before he took it anywhere else. She thanked him for his discretion and told him she'd look into it personally. She had, in fact, spent that same evening deciding exactly how she would make sure he never got the chance to look into it further himself. The beginning. Selena had inherited the plant and every single one of its quiet habits directly from her father, who built its reputation and its healthy profit margins on precisely these kinds of shortcuts, long before she ever sat behind his old desk chair herself. Back when she still believed she'd run things differently once she was in charge, she used to tell herself, back in her 20s, idealistic and newly promoted, that she'd fix all of it eventually when she finally had the real authority to. She never did. The desk changed hands. The corner cutting simply didn't. Year after year, quarter after quarter, one quiet decision compounding into the next until there was no clean version of the business left to return to. The fingerprints that finally, quietly cleared Denise weeks later were lifted from the sugar dispenser itself. Selena's, unmistakably, on a task she hadn't personally performed in 6 full years. The one single morning, it suddenly, permanently mattered more than anything else on her calendar that week, more than she could have possibly known when she woke up early to do it. Thanks for rewinding this one with us on Emovura Crime Files. If you want to catch the next one, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. A new rewind story. I'll see you in the next one.